Good evening. I'm Gina Roberts, Voter Education Director for the Citizens Clean Elections Commission. As the state's only nonpartisan voter education agency, Clean Elections is proud to sponsor these debates. Our mission is to ensure that you have the opportunity to hear directly from the candidates, ask questions about the issues that impact your life, and head to the polls with confidence. To make sure your voice is heard, please keep these upcoming deadlines in mind. June 22nd is the voter registration deadline, June 24th, early voting begins, and July 21st is primary election day. A quick reminder, all registered voters, including independents, are eligible to vote in the upcoming primary election. If you're watching this debate live, we want to hear from you. You can submit a question for the candidates at any time using one of the following methods. You can email debates@kc-a.com. You can text 480-769-9511 or phone 480-937-1253. Thank you for joining us and for staying engaged in our democracy. For more resources to help you prepare for the upcoming July 21st primary election, please visit our website at azcleanelections.gov. Enjoy the debate.
Good evening and welcome to the Arizona Clean Elections debate for Legislative District 4, the Republican primary. I'm TJ LaRue, a reporter with the Arizona Agenda, and I'm your moderator tonight. I've been writing about Arizona politics for 3 years with a focus on elections, the legislature, and municipal government. Tonight, you're going to hear from Sandra Christensen, one of the 3 candidates running in the Republican Party primary for 2 seats to represent Legislative District 4 at the state capitol. Representatives Matt Gress and Pamela Carter, the other 2 candidates in this contested GOP primary for the district's 2 House seats, did not plan to be here tonight, and with voting at the state capitol still going on at the current moment, we're not able to attend. Because of that, we'll be doing a Q&A with Sandra this evening rather than a debate format. Legislative District 4 encompasses a small, densely populated section of North Phoenix and Scottsdale, spanning between State Route 51 and the 101 freeways, and running from Camelback Road in the south to Pinnacle Peak Road at its northernmost point. District 4 is known as a moderate swing district, and the winners of this Republican primary will face off with Democrats in what's likely to be a contested battle and a key swing district for next lawmakers. Voters in the district will elect 1 state senator and 2 state representatives, and the candidates are competing on the same ballot to make it through the primary. According to recent polling of voters in the district, the issues most on voters' minds are housing, education, and the economy. We'll get to those tonight. So here's how tonight's Q&A will go. We'll start off with a 90-second opening statement. Then we'll spend a few minutes getting to know who the candidate is as a person. After that, we'll dig into how she would address some of the core issues facing the district and the state. We'll ask how she would have voted on one real bill from this session. And then after a quick set of rapid fire questions, we'll finish with a closing statement. So with that, Sandra, want to thank you for being here. We'll start with a 90-second opening statement so you can tell the voters who you are and why you're running.
Thank you, TJ. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. My name is Sandra Christensen. I'm an elected official in the Paradise Valley Unified School District Governing Board. I've been on that board nearly 4 years, and I've served the families well of the Paradise Valley School District, which is in District 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's one of the largest school districts in Legislative District 4. The reason I'm running, number one reason, is to make our schools centers of academic excellence. My second main reason for running is to promote safe cities and towns. And number 3, a strong, thriving economy with lower taxes to put more money in the pockets of Arizonans. I moved here in 1994 to be an IT project manager for what was then called Allied Signal Aerospace. We ended up purchasing Honeywell and took on the Honeywell branding. So I worked there for a number of years. I have a business background in information technology from New Mexico State University. And I have some graduate studied classes in information technology, business, and veterinary medicine. When I moved here, I had no idea how much I would fall in love with Arizona. Not only that, I fell in love with my husband here. So he moved here about the same time I did. We met and we got married a few years later. A few years later, we had our son. Our son is a born and raised Scottsdale, Arizonan, which is kind of rare these days because there's a lot of us transplants. We raised our son here. We met here. He's a graduate of Horizon High School, and I intend to do all I can to make Arizona the best place it can be. I have 30 years of experience in business technology and vet med in the public and private sector. And so I am ready and equipped to be able to take on a job as your elected official in the state house.
Thanks so much, Sandra. I appreciate that. So first, we'll get into our first round of questions. But before that, just a quick reminder, any viewers can submit a question at any time. You can email debates@kc-a.com. You can text 480-769-9511. Or you can call 480-937-1253. So with that, we'll get into the About You section of the Q&A. The segment's about who you are, not necessarily your policy positions, but what shaped you, how you think, and who you'd be once in office. So please take about 60 to 90 seconds for these answers. So the first question, tell us about the hardest period of your life. How did you get through it, and what did it teach you about yourself?
The hardest period of my life was being accepted to one of the most prestigious veterinary schools on the planet. I got into UC Davis School of Vet Med in 2006. And then I found out after 9 years of trying to have a child, I was pregnant. And so the original plan was that I was going to move to California in Sacramento area, Davis, California, to go to veterinary school. And it was after I had already retired from information technology. And I would go there and be a veterinarian. But God had other plans for me. I had my wonderful son, Logan, and it was a complicated pregnancy. I was an older mom, had a C-section about 3 weeks before veterinary school started. And so right off the bat, my son was in the NICU. I had been sick. We were both in the hospital. And then I started vet school. So that was my introduction to UC Davis. It's a very challenging school. I did make it through 3 years of my 4-year doctorate, but I had a lot of complications early on with my post recovery from my pregnancy. And then I had some other health issues after that. But I turned lemons into lemonade because with my strong business and tech background and my new veterinary background, I ended up coming back to my favorite state, Arizona, to be a practice manager at a very large hospital in downtown Phoenix. So I ran a business that was a medium-sized business at a veterinary hospital, and I loved that job. It was so much fun and it coupled and married my business with my veterinary background. So it was a lot of fun.
Great. And the next question, take us back to the specific moment you decided to run for state representative. I know you have some political experience, obviously, but what was happening around you and what pushed you over the edge to challenge the Republican incumbents who represent the district?
As I mentioned before, I've been on the Paradise Valley School Board for nearly 4 years. And in that time, especially these last couple of years, I am the sole voice of reason. And I'm not saying this to toot my own horn. I've been called the voice of reason. I've also been called the voice of the people there because I listen and I act and I try to help as many people as possible. So early on in my time at the um, on the school board, I started working for the Arizona Department of Education. I was constituent services manager there and ombudsman. I worked there for a couple of years. And in that role and in that time, I worked with the governor's office, with their constituent services managers. I worked with the attorney general's office with issues coming in from the state on issues that concerning educators. And then I also work with many legislators and obviously the public. So I feel really equipped and ready for this role. The reason I decided to run is because I really truly got on the school board to make school centers of academic excellence. And I quickly found out that being one school board member in one school district in one state, getting outvoted 1 to 4 does not help to make schools better. And so that is why the main reason I set my sights on the legislature.
Got it. Well, thank you. So our last question of this section, forget the statewide talking points. What's one specific road, school, business, or neighborhood in your district that needs help right now? And make sure you name it and tell us exactly what's wrong and what you would do.
Well, Paradise Valley is one of the largest school districts in the state. I believe it's the seventh largest. And we have many different schools. When my kid was in elementary, he went to Pinnacle Peak Prep, which was one of our flagship schools. But when I got on the governing board, I started touring all the schools. And so one school in particular is a very interesting school. It's a full title school, and it's Palomino Primary, Palomino Secondary, and then there's a boys and girls club right in the middle of the school, all on one campus. And while I see us really doing great work there, there is a large Latino population there. And so one of the challenges for the teachers is the migrant populations that come in and out. And so, as you know, the public schools teach all of the children that are living in the area. And so one of the challenges there for Palomino is that migrant population, because it's really hard and difficult when you have different kids coming in and out. Often in that school as well, those two schools, they have two working parents. So comparing it to my kids' school, Pinnacle Peak Prep, where we were fortunate to, at that time, I quit my job and I was able to stay at home to help my son. A lot of those families can't. And so I really think that they're doing a good job there at Palomino Primary and Secondary. But just because of the situation with the parents, and I believe that in order for students to do well, parents and teachers have to partner. And so it's difficult when the parents aren't always available.
I see. All right. Well, thanks very much. Let's move on to our next segment and talk about some issues. And certainly with your background in education, we'll be interested to hear your perspective on some of the educational issues facing Arizona and broadly the nation as well. First one, AI is everywhere in Arizona classrooms.
Yes.
Kids are using ChatGPT to write essays, teachers using it to grade. Would you vote to ban it from K-12 schools, require AI literacy as a core subject, or would you leave this to school districts or other jurisdictions to figure out?
I believe in local control. I do have a tech background. I've asked a lot of questions about AI on my school board. And while I am not opposed to technology, I believe that we have to have technology with guardrails. And although the schools have indicated that we do have guardrails, we are in the wild west of AI currently. And so things are happening faster than the schools can keep up. And our kids are very smart and they were born with technology. And so it's really difficult to get ahead of things and to keep our students safe, because when parents send their kids to school, they expect reading, writing, math, science, arts, athletics, but they also expect their children to be safe. Those are two fundamental things when we send our children to school. And so with the dawn of AI, it can be increasingly difficult. Now, I've seen AI done well. As an elected official, I have toured a school that was in North Scottsdale that is a full AI school. And I say it was done well because they're using things similar to what we're using in the public schools like Khan Academy. But what they're doing is they are making sure that the students are learning life skills. And so they're using AI in order to let the students self-pace. It's sort of a Montessori example, if you will. But then the rest of the time they do life skills. So when I toured that school, the kids were fixing a tire, some of the older kids. And so it's really good in that setting, but it's much more difficult in the public schools because we have a broad use of technology and we don't have as much flexibility. So yes, I would like to see technology used, but I would like to see us use it in smaller quantities and learn critical thinking, how to write cursive again, and read books that are not on their computers.
Excellent. So another question, and this one not related to education, rather to voting. So Republicans have called for ending mail-in voting and moving to single-day hand-counted paper ballots. Most Republican voters in Arizona actually vote by mail. So we want to know, would you vote to end mail-in voting, or what do you say to the Republican voters who depend on it?
I believe we need to vote with the will of the people. We live in a constitutional republic. So if the will of the people is to have mail-in voting, then we as elected officials need to listen. Now, I will say that mail-in voting also provides challenges to our election system. It takes longer to count the votes. So I really did appreciate that the legislature was making some changes. So now individuals can't just drop off their mail-in ballots on election day, because that was causing us to have long wait times to find the results. So I think we're moving in the right direction here. Will of the people, right? But people do have concerns with election integrity. So we just need to keep improving things and keep listening to our constituents.
Great. Let's go back to education briefly. So Prop 123 expired last year, and schools are now relying on one-time backfill funds to stay open. Obviously, the deal between the governor and Republican leadership in the House and Senate did not include a renewal for Prop 123, but some Republicans in leadership have expressed interest in renewing it. So would you vote to send a clean renewal to Arizona voters, yes or no?
When you say clean renewal, are you talking about as originally written, or are you talking about some of the negotiations that are taking place? Because it's my understanding a clean renewal is that just as written?
Essentially, a clean renewal would be the same, a renewal of the same version of Prop 123 that voters approved previously.
I would definitely consider that. I think it's important to have those funds and fund education. However, I will remind our viewers that more than half our state budget goes to education. So I would like us to look at putting dollars in the classroom for teacher pay and for students. But my concern with not renewing Prop 123 is where's that backfill coming from? Because it's multiple millions of dollars. And so is that going to come from the general fund and then put us even more in debt? That's my concern.
I see. All right. And then another question here. So let's turn our attention to data centers. Some Republicans say data centers are a big economic win for Arizona. Others say they're pushing up utility bills, draining aquifers that families depend on, and stressing the source of water. Power companies are asked to raise your constituents' electricity rates partly to accommodate data centers. So would you vote to require new data centers to bring their own water and power, or is that government overreach into private business decisions?
I believe that we need to make better decisions for all Arizonans. And while I do understand with the increase in the need for AI and data centers, we cannot pass that along to Arizonans, the taxpayers, because they're already hurting. I'm knocking a lot of doors right now, and I'm talking to the average voter. And we have several people in our district that are on a fixed income, and they can't afford more increases passed along to them. And I believe it needs to be a partnership, and that if we're going to be building more data centers, we cannot solely rely on the back of the taxpayers to fund these. The other concern that I do have with data centers is, what are we going to do with the water? You mentioned water, and water is one of our most prized and precious resources here in Arizona. I've been looking into this issue, and I've seen other states where they went a little bit overboard with the data centers because they had the land. But now individuals in other states are saying, why is my water brown? And so it's my understanding that although yes, they use a lot of water, but what happens with that runoff? So is it going into our groundwater system? We can't allow that. We have to ensure that Arizonans have clean and safe water, and that these data centers don't hurt our economic outlook for the majority of Arizonans.
Great. Well, we're doing pretty well on time here, so I want to ask you another question. With your decision to challenge two incumbents who are already in the state house, we want to know what are one or maybe a few policy issues that you differ with your opponents on.
Well, I won't name my opponents by name because I respect them. I know they're elected officials, and I've actually knocked doors with them. I know them personally. Republicans are about merit and choice, and I jumped into this race not to run against anybody, but to run on my own merits. And so, one of the things that I would have differed on in one of my challengers is mandatory vaccines for our military. I believe in choice. And I'm going to tell a short little vaccine story. I am not an anti vaxxer, but when I went to vet school, I told you that I started with a newborn baby. And when you're in veterinary school, you're required to get a rabies vaccine. I was concerned because I was breastfeeding my son. And so I asked the question, is it safe for my son? And they said, well, it should be. And I called the manufacturers of the vaccine, and they said, well, obviously we don't test on newborn babies, but it should be. And that mama bear gut feeling kind of hit me. And so what I did is I talked to my pediatrician, and I ended up excuse me, but it's pump and dump if you don't know what that term means. The milk that came out of me was pink. Guess what color that vaccine was? Pink. So I think what we need to do is just have choice. While I said I'm not an anti-vaxxer, I believe that everybody has the right to make decisions for vaccines or their own body or medical decisions altogether. And the reason I tell that story is because it was not on my radar before. I just assumed that all vaccines were safe.
Well, thanks, Sandra. On that note, let's change gears a little bit. So, Before tonight's debate, you received 3 actual bills from this legislative session, and we picked one of them for tonight. So I'll read a short summary of the bill. I'd like you to take 1 minute to tell the voters 2 things: how you would have voted and why. So the bill we'll discuss tonight is House Bill 2580. It's about school voucher oversight. Arizona's ESA program currently sends public money to parents to spend on private education. The money can go to private schools, tutors, and increasingly to what are called micro schools, small, informal learning environments that can be run out of somebody's house or out of a rented space. The problem is this bill attempts to solve is that there's almost no oversight of micro schools, especially with regards to who can run one or what standards they have to meet. It would do 3 main things: define what a micro school actually is, require background checks on anybody running a micro school, and give the Department of Education more oversight authority over ESAs to enforce safety, transparency, and financial accountability standards as a condition of accepting ESA money. So with that, Sandra, I'll let you take it away. Would you vote yes or no on House Bill 2580, and why?
I would have voted no on House Bill 2580, and not because there wasn't some good ideas in here. I'm all for accountability and safety. One of the things that I did like is making sure that anybody that works with a child is background checked. As you've probably read in the news, there have been several safety concerns in our public schools and just all schools all around. We have to keep our children safe. So I did like that. What I didn't like was that the sponsorship there was no Republican representation. And I believe that the best bills have bipartisan support. The other thing is, in terms of micro schools, I believe that parents are the ones that have the right to direct the education, upbringing, health, mental health of their own children. And so I am for choice. And I think the ESA programs are fine the way they are. I worked for the Department of Ed, and in that time, in my role there, I did take some ESA overflow calls. And so I know that there are fail safes. I know that there is a smaller amount of people that have tried to take advantage, but I'm on a school board and I've seen a lot of wasteful spending there, even in the multiple millions. So I think we need accountability all around in our schools.
Great. Well, so thank you. We have time for a rapid fire round of questions here before we close. So these are yes or no questions. We'll give you about 15 seconds, and you can add a short reason if you want, but please keep it tight. So question 1, would you vote to reinstate Arizona's pre-abortion ban? Yes or no?
Say that again, the pre-abortion ban?
I'm sorry. Yeah, that was a slip of the tongue on my part. So would you vote to reinstate Arizona's pre-Roe versus Wade abortion ban?
Okay.
Yes or no?
Okay. I am very happy that we have decided to bring this topic back to the states. And so I think that it's important rather than having something at the federal level because each state is very different. And so I would leave that decision to the states.
Sure. But what we're talking about here is the Arizona's pre-Roe abortion law, which, was Roe versus Wade made it federal, but obviously now that it's not, we're just curious, if you would.
I am pro-life, so I would choose life.
But would you vote to reinstate the pre-Roe law, the 1864 territorial law? That's the question. Just want to make sure.
I am pro-life and I will look at all things, but it's ultimately up to the voters to decide.
Okay. What's one business or organization in your district whose work you would want to highlight?
One business, well, there's a new business called United Defense Tactical. And last year I was doing marketing. I was working for a company where we had a publication and I was reaching out to local business owners. And during that time, I met one of the owners at United Defense Tactical, and I loved their business model because they're all about same things I am: educate, prosper, and protect. And they are in business to ensure that all Arizonans are aware of safety issues. Now, it is not a gun range, it is a tactical defense business. And so, what they do is they train people to be confident, they train people to be able to defend themselves. Either with their hands, not necessarily with a firearm, but that's one business that I have really enjoyed. One business owner I've enjoyed getting to know, and that business, it wasn't on my radar until I walked in that door and talked about marketing concerns. But I think the business model is really good, and I'm glad you asked that question because I know this is supposed to be rapid fire, but I just want to mention our small business owners are hurting here in Arizona, and we need to do all we can to support them.
Another quick one. What's your go-to comfort meal after a long day?
Comfort meal, green chili with pork in a pot roast, or a slow cooker. I'm from New Mexico, so the hotter the better. And no offense, but I do not like Mexican restaurants in Arizona. I'm a little bit of a green chili snob.
Right on. And who's your favorite band in high school?
I liked Bryan Adams. I liked Def Leppard. I was a rocker.
Excellent.
80s
Yeah,
rock
great.
was the best.
Right. And then better senator for Arizona, Mark Kelly or Ruben Gallego?
Neither.
All right. Great. Thanks so much. We appreciate it, Sandra. So we've reached our closing statements. Please take just about 90 seconds and make your closing case to voters.
Thank you so much, TJ. Again, as I mentioned, I'm Sandra Christensen, and I'm an elected official in the Paradise Valley School District, but I am asking you to give me a job promotion because I am ready and equipped and willing to serve you in the State House. My 3 priorities are to make our schools centers of academic excellence. Number 2, a strong, thriving economy with lower taxes, putting more money in the pockets of Arizonans. And 3, safe cities and towns. I believe in the American dream. My dad was a small business owner, and I really want to get back to that. I have a live stream on Tuesdays, and one of the people that I interviewed was my own son the other day. And he said that he doesn't feel that they have the American dream. And so that is why I'm running. I want to make things better for all Arizonans, but for the next generation, especially. That's why I work so hard to make our schools better. That's why I could ride off into the sunset right now. I'm retired, but I am fighting for all Arizonans, and I am the best candidate for this position. I am the only candidate that actually has been on a school board and has had kids in the district to have to maneuver things and some of the challenges that we faced. And so I'm hoping that the voters will see my heart and will hire me in the primary here coming up in just about a week. So I just want to thank you, everyone. And my name is Sandra Christensen. My website is sandraforaz.com. And I would love to serve you in the State House of Representatives.
Thanks so much, Sandra. So that concludes tonight's Q&A with Republican primary candidate Sandra Christensen, who's running for the State House and Legislative District 4. Thanks for being with us. We appreciate it. To our voters, thanks for tuning in and informing yourselves ahead of the July 21st primary. For official voter information, you can visit azcleanelections.gov. Thanks for joining us, and have a great night.